it is round 6 of the 2025 F1 season. And as Harry mentions, it is the second sprint weekend of the year to this point. It's a temporary street circuit, runs right next to the Hard Rock Stadium, 19 corners overall, a bit of a mix of high and low speed. And whilst overtaking can be a little bit tricky, there are a few opportunities at turn 11 and turn 17, most predominantly. 2025 marks the 4th consecutive year that we've held this Miami GP. First 2 years won by Max Verstappen, and indeed it was looking that way last year as well until, aided by a safety car, Lando Norris not only claimed the victory, but he claimed his first win. And Harry, that's where we'll start the discussion tonight, is with Lando Norris, because he lost the championship lead in Jeddah. He's still very much within touching distance of Oscar Piastri, his teammate ahead of him. But how much does he need a win here?
He needs to beat Piastri. I'm not going to say he desperately needs a win, but he needs to get back on terms with Piastri. So it's outscoring his teammate here. I think that's the important thing. Obviously, a win is a bonus in that. And if the McLaren continues to be the fastest car, then obviously that could well be what they're fighting for. But yeah, I think it's really important now for not because it'll be championship over if he doesn't, but I just think the psychology, the mind games that go alongside the championship fight. Norris needs to get back on top of this now, because he's not had a win since Australia, obviously, and Piastri certainly had the upper hand since that point, basically. Perhaps Suzuka aside, but yeah, he really needs to get back on terms with his teammate, because otherwise, in the form that Piastri's in, he risks his teammate running away with it. So, yeah, a good weekend in store for Norris. He will not be happy, I guess, that it could well be mixed conditions. There's also obviously a sprint in the mix as well, which adds, it's not a straightforward, simple race weekend in that regard. So he won't be looking forward to that. But there's also more opportunity to outscore Piastri. So there's an upside to that. But yeah, I think it is important. Not crucial that he wins, but definitely crucial that he beats him.
And I mean, you mentioned wet weather conditions. That, of course, is where Lando Norris's one victory has come from so far this year. So who knows? That might be a bit of a blessing that he wouldn't have been expecting. Sam, how much does Lando Norris need a win?
I think I'm in line with Harry here that the win isn't the essential part of this conversation. Obviously, that would be delightful. I'm sure that's what he would want when you ask him what you want out of this weekend. But what I think he'll be wanting more so is he's going to be better than Piastri. He will leave this weekend faster, more dominant, quicker at every point than Oscar Piastri. Out-qualifies him, out-races him, outscores him. Verstappen might go on to win this race. Ferrari might have a second resurgence. George Russell might get his first win of the season. But if Norris leaves this racetrack and goes at every point, the guy who's beating me in the championship with the same machinery, I was quicker than, pat on the back, that's a good step. I can feel good about this. The win in terms of championship fights, though, where he believes he isn't in a championship fight as of yet, and everyone else does, yeah, pretty essential. Winning races is the best way to win a championship. Put that one in the book. And by beating your teammate who's leading, that's the way you claw the points back. So he just simply needs to be faster than Piastri. It's very different to how the McLaren is. The McLaren might not be the fastest car. We don't know. Likely it will be. But I think Norris, you bring up the fact that he got his first win of the season in those mixed wet conditions. Historically, before that, the rain really hasn't been his friend. You look at previous form. I think two that immediately stand out to me are Brazil last season, where he a real hash of things. He had to get past Piastri by being let past a couple of times. And then historically Russia, right, where he was possibly going to have his first ever Grand Prix victory, made the wrong call onto what tyres to go onto. And that meant that Lewis Hamilton came through and won that race. He's not been brilliant in mixed conditions. He's going to be hoping to turn that form around, I think.
Yeah, I think in regards to Norris, and maybe particularly against Oscar Piastri, the championship at this point in the season can't be won, but it can certainly be lost. And he needs to find a way to keep Piastri within touching distance, even if he doesn't retake the championship lead this weekend. You don't want the mentality to change from Norris's perspective, in that right now, Piastri, Verstappen, Norris, they're kind of just going into every race weekend with trying to find as many points as they possibly can with whatever car is at their disposal. but you can't let Piastri get too much of a lead, because then the mentality going into a race weekend changes a little bit. Suddenly, you're not thinking about, how do I maximize this weekend? You're thinking about, I can't afford to lose. I can't afford Piastri to gain more points on me. I can't afford for the points gap to remain the same. And that's never helpful. So I think Norris, for his sake, needs to stay within touch. As you both say, maybe it includes a win, maybe it doesn't. But there is a need for Norris to get back on it versus what he's had in the last couple of races. The momentum is definitely with Oscar Piastri, given that he's won 3 of the 5 races so far this year. And of course, he's the first driver to win back-to-back races in those last 2 races that we've had of the triple header. And there's no sign of Oscar Piastri folding under the pressure, just based on his overall demeanor, what we've seen from him so far. Yes, we haven't seen him with the pressure of a championship lead and him being the one that is being chased and hunted down rather than the opposite situation. But I don't get the sense from Piastri that it's going to impact him much. So Norris could do with a bit of a reminder weekend to just to remind Piastri that I beat you last year. I out-qualified you 21 times last year, and there's a reason for that, because so far we haven't really seen the reason for that whatsoever. The problem I have with the question of, does Lando Norris need a win? And this kind of speaks to his overall mentality. He's so hard on himself that is self-confessed as well. Like, he is fully admitted he is incredibly hard on himself. When you are that way, you will always find the worst of the situation and always expect more of yourself, even when you have achievements and you have accomplishments. I can speak to it. It sounds like me. It's just, if there are 100 things that happen and 99 of them are good and one of them is bad, Lando Norris feels like the type of person that is going to focus on the one bad thing. So that's why I question how much a win actually helps him here. Because if he doesn't break out of that cycle of that way of thinking, he'll always find a negative in something that he's doing. Whereas I don't think Piastri thinks about it the same way.
I've spoken about this quite a few times, actually, that his mentality is his biggest weakness. I don't think he has that cutthroat mentality to do what Verstappen has done historically, what Hamilton did when he was up against the likes of Rosberg and then Vettel and, a few other drivers. I think he doesn't have what Piastri has got right now. And actually, I'm going to make a reference about something that I don't fully understand, but I think Ben will get much more than I do. Rory McIlroy recently won the Masters.
He sure did.
And he spoke extensively about how he used to get very, very anxious, very, very nervous. And he changed and had a new sports psychologist come work with him to adapt his mindset, to adapt how he approaches these huge challenges. And he went on to win the Masters, and that completed essentially, their Grand Slam. And he's one of the most successful golfers of all time now. Incredible feat to have. Maybe McLaren needs to sit down with Lando Norris and go, why don't we work with someone here to really make sure that when it comes to these cutthroat moments where you need to deliver at the top end, you feel good about yourself, you feel confident, you feel like you could be a winner. And maybe that's what he needs, because he's got the raw talent, he's got the speed in the car, but it feels like the moment the pressure gets put on him just a little bit, the mistakes start to creep in. And around a time like this, where you've still got 19 races to go, you do have a championship winning car in your hand, you don't want to be dropping the ball this early in the season.
As we've already referenced, weather is likely to be a factor as we head throughout the weekend. It looks a little bit better earlier in the weekend on Friday, maybe a small chance of some rain on Saturday, but the biggest chance of rain right now as we're recording this is on that race day Sunday. Harry, is that what Verstappen will be hoping actually ends up happening? And do you think he'll be in the fight even without that?
He definitely will be hoping for that. I think anything that at the moment that leans into Verstappen's skill and takes away maybe car advantage from at least the McLaren, but also his competitors, Verstappen will definitely want, because he will thrive in those conditions. Obviously Brazil is the obvious reference, but Australia this year, he was excellent in those conditions, and he'll be hoping for the same. I think he will be in the mix. it's kind of hard to tell with the Red Bull, which has somehow become like the Mercedes of the field at the moment, where
Jekyll and Hyde, right?
Yeah, it's just very inconsistent. But, you know, for the most part, Verstappen's, you know, Bahrain aside, I think Verstappen's been able to drag a result out of it. So I think he will be in the mix. Whether it will be enough on outright pace to challenge for a win, I think that remains to be seen. And I think it's quite hard to know until you get to like Friday. But I think he'll certainly be in the mix, and he will definitely be praying for some rain, anything to mix up the status quo somewhat. So yeah, I mean, as always, count Max Verstappen out at your peril. And I referenced the bad race in Bahrain. He still finished like sixth, something like that. Yeah, I mean, well, awful, mate.
Get good, scrub.
Yeah, get good. You're washed. So even on his bad days, it's still pretty good. So yeah, I think Verstappen's firmly going to be involved.
Sam, do you think Verstappen's going to be involved, rain or no rain?
Oh, 100%. I think with rain, even more so, rain is the great leveler in F1. It causes chaos. It causes mistakes to be made. Cars can't go as quick as they usually can, and some cars go much faster, bizarrely. Again, we've spoken about it a lot already, but Brazil, look at what Alpine were able to achieve in that wet Brazil race in comparison to what they were able to achieve for the rest of the season. They pretty much made 50% of their entire points haul for the whole season through that one Grand Prix. And that was mostly down to wet weather and other cars not performing the way that they expected. We know Max Verstappen is truly phenomenal as a racing driver in the dry, but he has the ability to do something special when it's a wet weather Grand Prix. He can extract something out of the car. He finds traction that others can't. You see him so regularly using these traditional karting lines where others will use the traditional racing line. And science, that's really stupid, but science tells you that the way that rubber works when it gets wet on a racetrack is the bit that we drive on in the dry, when it becomes wet, becomes incredibly slippery because the way that the rubber has been treated and how the cars have been driving over it, and the bit we don't touch is actually far grippier. So using the outside karting lines is regularly the best way to do it. And Max just instinctively knows that. He knows where to extract that pace. So if we do get a wet Grand Prix, and a dry sprint even, we might see a real changing form between those two Grand Prix. And I think Max will grow stronger throughout the weekend. I think the sprint will be good. I think he'll be fighting a bit of a pain car to drive. But I think if it does rain on that Sunday, he's a real threat to win this race.
To state the obvious and what you've both already mentioned, I won't spend much time on it. He'll definitely prefer if it was raining on Sunday, just based on what we've seen from him previously in the likes of Brazil and indeed Melbourne this season. You want a variable if you don't have the fastest car, so that rain could be the equalizer he's looking for. Even with no rain, I do think Verstappen will be a feature in this race. He's done well at Saudi Arabia. He's done well at Suzuka, two tracks that have a good amount of high-speed corners. And whilst there is a bit of a variety at Miami, first two sectors are pretty high speed. So I think that will give Red Bull some encouragement. The other thing that should give them a little bit of encouragement is, I know Saudi Arabia was a disappointment for Verstappen in how the penalty was applied and how he didn't win the race. Afterwards, he seemed to be not best pleased. But on reflection, I think he can be quite happy with how the weekend went, because the one thing that McLaren have seemed to hold an advantage over everyone to this point has been that tyre wear. At Saudi Arabia, it looked pretty close. And we're expecting, again, tyre wear to be more of a factor here at Miami than it was 12 months ago. Pirelli, similar to Saudi Arabia, have gone for a softer part of their tyre range. We're going to C3, C4, C5 this weekend, where we were only 2, 3, and 4 last year. So more tyre wear. But based on what we saw at Saudi Arabia, maybe Verstappen's not going to be disadvantaged by that. Sadly, and it's a big question mark, not only because if it starts raining, we won't be dealing with these tyres anyway, but we don't know whether more tyre wear will lead to something like Bahrain, where you get more strategies and more pit stops, or more like Jeddah, where they just manage even more than they're going to anyway. I would still expect things to be a one-stop if it's a dry race, but who knows? Maybe the slightly softer rubber is going to promote some two stops. Sam, Charles Leclerc managed to beat both Mercedes in Jeddah and, of course, picked up Ferrari's first podium outside of a sprint so far this year. Leclerc's first podium, full stop. Same again here? Or do you think Mercedes might rebound?
There are some interesting similarities with Jeddah and Miami. As you already mentioned, that really high-speed first sector, and then the second sector is basically a big, long straight with a braking zone at the end of it, and then you get into that silly Mickey Mouse section where the cars are like, they're just clumsy, and it's not fun to go around at all. So I think the Ferrari, now they've worked out a little bit about their balance, they've worked a little bit how their new floor is starting to operate. I think they're going to start to come not good. Good's too kind.
Whoa. Slow yourself down, boy.
They're starting to come okay.
I'll allow it.
And that's a good step in the right direction. But we're not there yet. We're not out of the woods yet. Now, George Russell has been phenomenal this season. He's one of our drivers of the season. He's managed to pull out so many brilliant performances. And I think that this racetrack will suit them overall better than what Jeddah did, especially, actually, that Mickey Mouse section. You go back to a few of the previous racetracks that we've seen. They were quite good through the slower section in Australia in that final sector. They were good through the slower corners through China, and the middle sector at Bahrain, they seem really, really strong. So I think that's where they'll make up their pace. The issue is, of course, Miami be hot. Miami be really hot. And it'd be humid as heck. So there's a real chance. Heck! There's a real heck sausages raining from the sky. There's a real chance that that we may start to see the Mercedes come undone. I think if they get through Miami and they're competitive, we can really put the it doesn't work in hot conditions to bed, and they've overcome it. But Ferrari, I think, could take a good step forward. I think that battle for, I say the third fastest car, whoever finishes behind Max Verstappen and the McLarens is going to be much closer in Miami than what we've seen over the last couple of races.
About 30 degrees is what we're looking at on Sunday
Ideal
at the moment. And that's even with the potential of rain. It's still going to be hot, even if it is raining. Harry, your thoughts on where the Mercedes might stack up this weekend?
Leclerc is kind of almost on his own in terms of his personal performance. So I think even if the car isn't quite not quite there, I think he will be in the mix with the Mercedes, as he kind of has been all year long, just scrapping away, trying to get a podium where he can. And yeah, for Mercedes, I genuinely think they do have I don't think we need Miami to prove whether they've got a solid car. I think they do have a solid car. I think it will go well here. I think it will just depend. It would depend how the tyre wear goes, because it obviously wasn't quite up to scratch in Saudi. It wasn't terrible, but it just obviously wasn't up to scratch versus their competitors, i.e., Ferrari and McLaren and the one Red Bull. But I think they will be in the mix. Russell tends to go quite well here, so far in his Mercedes career, and I suspect he'll be in the mix again. And the first sector is like Antonelli's dream, because there's no braking. He doesn't need to brake.
I was going to ask the question, the Mickey Mouse section.
He's going to straight line it.
And it's probably I was going to say, how many corners is that for Antonelli?
One.
Is it zero?
It's actually a straight. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think he sees it like an oval. He'll just be at 230 miles an hour all the time, slightly to the left.
Yeah,
I don't like that suggestion. And the only reason I don't like that suggestion is because I do actually think this racetrack could just be better if it was an oval.
Oh, yeah. Can we just have one oval racetrack, please?
That's a good one. That's a good pump the brakes there. But yeah, so I suspect Mercedes will be competitive this weekend. And if we do have some rain, that will certainly help them too. So yeah, Leclerc, Mercedes, I think that we could see something similar to Saudi.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Charles Leclerc does follow on from what he had at Saudi Arabia and ends up beating both Mercedes again. Remember that in at least the last two races, Bahrain, Ferrari as a whole, but Charles Leclerc in particular, was unlucky based on how the strategy ended up. He still had a good result anyway versus what he'd done before that, but it might have been even better if not for the unfortunate timing of the safety car. And then, of course, at Saudi Arabia, he picks up his first podium. Again, a pretty effective strategy, but Leclerc did an excellent job managing that. And while Saudi Arabia, the practice sessions didn't look particularly great for Ferrari, they seemed to work their way into the weekend quite well, to the point where they got to the race and actually pace was pretty good. So there is something to work with for Ferrari. And it's not like Mercedes have gone particularly well at Miami in the last couple of years. It's they've never had a podium here, just to start that off. So I could definitely see Leclerc being in the fight with the Mercedes and maybe beating both of them. In terms of Lewis Hamilton, Sam, he was pretty downbeat after Saudi Arabia. We've only seen, I think so far, him get the better of Charles Leclerc in that sprint win that he had in China. Is it there? Is it going to come back this weekend? What do you think?
No. No, the car isn't that bad. The car isn't that bad. We've been harsh with Ferrari, of course. We've kind of
very
mocked them a little. Very, very harsh. We've mocked them for their disqualification, and they're not on race-winning pace that we expect them to be. But at the same time, the car is capable. It's competitive. You know, okay, they got their first podium, but Leclerc has been in and around the third place fight most races here. And Lewis Hamilton, I don't know if he just needs a total changing setup approach, because he can drive that car fast, as you saw in the China sprint race. He won. So there's something there. He's still got the talent. He's still got ability. And if the car seems to perfectly click with him, he can do wonders with it. But he's never gone brilliantly well at Miami. It's not a track he seems massively comfortable with. And I don't know why now will be the reason it will suddenly come back to him. So unfortunately, I'm expecting him to be at the back of that pack again. Him and Tsunoda, I imagine, will be behind the fight for third place with both Mercedes, Leclerc, and then maybe Verstappen or maybe one of the McLarens, depending on how the pace turns out for those guys. I just can't see him being on it. I think he's going to be a couple of tenths off on most race pace.
The one thing that might give Lewis Hamilton hope is how well he performed here last year for Mercedes versus George Russell, because at this point, Mercedes weren't particularly quick. And going into this race, George Russell had finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton in every single race. He beat George Russell in Miami, and he beat him fairly comfortably. It was an 18-second win for Hamilton over Russell. So there is a little bit of encouragement there, but outside of that, it has been tough to this point. And the issue for Hamilton, and indeed for Leclerc, really has just been qualifying. So from Leclerc's perspective, he's certainly done a better job than Hamilton has in quali. But the last 4 qualifying sessions, Charles Leclerc has been between 3 tenths and 4 tenths of pole. It's consistent, but he has not got within 3 tenths of pole. If Leclerc can't do it, it's not doable. I'm fairly convinced. So Ferrari needs to find just a couple of attempts to get him in this fight, because Leclerc is having to rely a little bit right now on the likes of Russell or one of the Mercedes or Verstappen not being on it. Because if they're all on it, if both McLarens don't make an error, if Verstappen's good, if Russell's good, he's looking at P5 at the best. They need to give him something of a better car in qualifying to go and fight with these guys. From Lewis Hamilton's perspective, the issue is the progression in qualifying, because in Q1, he is on a par with Charles Leclerc. In Q2, he's a couple of tenths behind. And then in Q3, he loses another few tenths again. And he's really struggling to match him. He needs to find a way to not only just be fast out the blocks in Q1, but then also carry that forward to Q2 and Q3, because that's not happening right now. Harry, any thoughts on Hamilton this weekend?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I think we've said before the season, you give him some time to get used to this car. And I think I've said this already. China's really not helped in terms of the sprint, because it gave us a glimpse of what Hamilton can do, and then it was cruelly taken away from us again. And I think that's made it like everything subsequently worse. If he was just sort of going along at the way he has, I think it would be less frustrating to watch at the moment. So, yeah, I think it's he needs to get on a par with Leclerc in qualifying. And this was always going to be a tough one. I know Lewis Hamilton is the most successful qualifier of all time, but Charles Leclerc is a god over a single lap and has been for a while. And I think it was always going to be a tough challenge. So that's not to say Hamilton can't start beating him, because I believe he could. But I think that's where his weekends lie, because I feel like from there, I think you've already said before, Ben, it's becoming at the moment a bit of a qualifying heavy season in terms of where you qualify really affects how you race then, turns out. I know that's an obvious thing to say about F1, but I think it really is a thing this year. So for Hamilton, I think he just needs to just get on level terms with Leclerc, because at the moment he's always having a few cars in between them really on a at the end of Q3, which just isn't helping his cause. So I think it'll come, and who knows what will happen with these upgrades. As I say, I mentioned China. There was, he was excellent there in the sprint. So there's no reason to say this can't happen again. But I think that's his starting point.
I've just looked at the time.
Oh yeah,
what is it, mate?
It's time for some bold predictions.
Gather around, little children, and listen to my song about my F1 bold predictions and how they'll all be wrong.
Need to update the lyrics. It's not all be wrong. It's all but one have been wrong so
Correct.
far this season. Sam, you are the only one of us three to have a point, and you have the honours. What's your bold prediction, sir?
2, 2, 2, 2. Parter. We're back.
Said more than 2 times.
everything said no. So it's going to be a chaotic race. We're going to have that rain. So there will be at least 5 DNFs across the Grand Prix, and Liam Lawson will finish inside the top 8.
so he's going to win.
Whoa.
Liam Lawson wins.
He could do on that prediction. So it's inside the top 8.
Hey, I'm right either way. I'm right if that happens, so it's fine.
Okay, 5 DNFs and a Lawson top 8. Harry, your bold prediction.
In the main race, one of the McLarens will not finish.
Ooh.
Okay.
Been pretty bulletproof so far this season, but one of the McLarens not to finish in the main race. I'm in desperate need of a point. So you
can't say Max Verstappen to score points. It doesn't work like that, Ben.
Yeah. So I was thinking I should probably, scale it back a little bit, go a little bit less bold than I have done in previous weeks. And then I thought, nah, that's boring. This is going to be a chaotic race, and I'm going to go with my biggest bold prediction of the season so far.
Oh boy.
Pierre Gasly podium.
Woo! Get the head sausages out. Let's do it. We're frying them up for Pete.
Brazil 2024 2.0.
I love it. I'm here for it. I hope you're right, Ben.
All right, let's go to sprint pole, sprint win, pole 1, 2, 3. Sam, if you can remember the order, go ahead.
Sprint pole, Lando Norris. Sprint win, Lando Norris. Pole, Max Verstappen. Win, Max Verstappen. Second place, Oscar Piastri. Third place, Lando Norris.
Harry, same for you.
Sprint pole, Lando Norris. Sprint win, Lando Norris. Pole position, Oscar Piastri. Race win, Max Verstappen. Lando Norris second. And George Russell third.
And I'm going with sprint pole, Oscar Piastri. Sprint win, Oscar Piastri. Pole position, Max Verstappen. Race win, a lot of faith in Max Verstappen. Lord. Second place, Lando Norris. Third place, Pierre Gasly.
Big up the Gazzle. The Gasoline.
I can't wait for him to retire.
I can't wait for him to be my 5th retirement. So Lawson sneaks into 8th.
And he's in third at the time.